When I'm making my special ribs, the most important thing is that you get the coals nice and hot. Because there's nothing better than ribs off of a good hot grill, see? Like so.
Moron, but at least he got to keep his soul. Introducing an epic vampires world where your enemies don't just die, you take their souls. Raziel and Soul Reaver from IDOS Interactive.
Dad? PlayStation.
Gotta love those old-time game trailers. So, here we are, 23 years to the day since it released on August 16th, 1999. And having spent many hours enamored with the game as a child, I wanted to play the game once more to see if it still stands up as well as I perceived it all those years ago. Now, for all the hardcore fans of the Legacy of Kain series, I do highly recommend you go and watch Josh Strife's retrospective on Soul Reaver that he recently put out, as it is incredibly well made and offers a much deeper dive into the game than you will find here with this shitpost disguised as a retrospective. Seriously, it's great. And now, with all that out of the way, and skipping the intro and tutorial for copyright reasons, let's reload Soul Reaver and experience this masterpiece in all of its gothic glory. Do note that we will be using the Steam release of the game, as it is the more easily accessible version that I can use, as well as being easier on the eyes.
If you fail to feed or absorb too many wounds, this fragile matter will dissolve.
Okay, where's the open? There it is.
Your prowess surpasses what you knew in life. Even massive obstacles can be moved effortlessly.
Oh yes, my favorite thing in games. Block puzzles.
My God! The sanctuary of the clans reduced to ruin. Beyond these walls lay the pillars of Nosgoth, the seat of Kain's empire.
And this is where we realize the impact of time has had on Nosgoth, as Raziel has awoken 500 years after his execution, and the lands have changed. For all you Blood Omen fans, this sets Soul Reaver 2,000 years after the events of Blood Omen and Kain's decision.
Earth strains to shrug off the pestilence of Kain's parasitic empire. The fate of this world was preordained in an instant by a solitary man.
I'm sorry, now the only thing I can picture is just Shere Khan the tiger as a Lovecraftian god.
In which the protagonist actually speaks with the outer god as he passes through the multiverse.
And it's not a pleasant picture.
Traveling began. Now it is nearly played out. Nosgoth teeters on the brink of collapse. Its fragile balance cannot hold.
We gotta get the gate first. We can never get the door open. Thank you. That gate is now open. Every time I look at these things, I feel like I'm going through a Rorschach test.
What does this remind you of? Yes. What does this remind you of? No.
With the warp gate activated, we are then brought back out to the Lake of Death, our execution site, and what will end up being the main area to access each level of the game. Also, the one place I remember well because of the elk noises that are just constantly blaring in the background.
These cliffs gave me my bearings. My clan territory was to the west. I was anxious to see
Bro,
how
that
my
elk in the
descendants had
background is
fared.
just losing his mind.
Hello, motherfucker.
You son of a... popping out of... Was that a bird? What, did they animate birds? They did. have a bird flying around. And yes, I was astonished by that fact, because that is the only background entity that I believe you could see in the game. Alright, where are we going? This way. Oh, that's a wall. PS1 arrow.
My brother Melchiah was made last, and therefore received the
Yeah,
poorest
this is the
portion
one that I
of Kain's
remember.
gift.
This is the only one that I
Although
remember aside
immortal,
from the spider guy.
his soul could not sustain the flesh, which retained much of its previous human frailty.
Now, as much as I hold this game in high regards, I'm not dumb to the fact that it is a product of its time and that it has some issues. Camera. Help. I'm lost. And this next section kind of speaks for itself. Oh, stop. Open. Just open the thank you. Careful platforming. Don't touch the water. Now, on to my biggest gripe, and it's padding. I don't like padding in video games. And I despise block puzzles in video games. Not because they're too challenging or anything like that, but because usually they are put in place just to fill out a section and add to your playtime. And most of the time, it's the same concept of put this color block here and this color block there instead of mixing mechanics and making it fun, making it engaging. And Soul Reaver stretches this concept to its absolute limit in almost every one of its levels. No, stop. Okay. Raziel, I need you to focus up your bud. No, stop. Oh, did you enjoy the brief break there? Good. Now more block puzzles. This time we're moving these fire blocks around to free the elevator before moving them all again to drop it to the final floor. I'll let this one play out. And this continues for pretty much the remainder of the game. Don't worry though, I'm gonna cut a good portion of them out. So it's at this point where we get introduced to the first of the lieutenants.
Show yourself, creature.
Our brother,
Recognize
Melchiah.
me, brother. Am I so changed? Melchiah? Yes, brother. You should have stayed where the master sent you, Raziel. You will find Nosgoth less pleasant than you remember.
What has become of my clan? Answer me, little brother, or I will beat an answer from your horrid lips.
Everyone is afraid, sibling. You awake to a world of fear.
And this is interesting because Melchiah is simply telling you, you are awakening to a world of fear. The lieutenants themselves are disgusted at the forms that they have become, or at least Melchiah is. Just a mass of flesh that is amalgamated from all of his victims. And there's nothing he can do to reverse that. it gave them power, but it heavily scarred them with their deviation from Kain. You ready for the easiest boss fight in the world? Now, boss fights in Soul Reaver were of that time period where all of the bosses, or the majority of them, followed the rule of 3. You have to do something 3 times, and you win. For Makaya, we don't simply fight him. We have to drop these spikes through him, impale him, and then we finally unlock the last mechanism, which is trapping him in the center and lowering this spike crusher on him.
Tell me, Melchiah, where can I find Kain?
The master is beyond your reach, Raziel. He makes himself known when he sees fit, not when commanded.
Now, pay attention here, because he could easily get out of this.
Careful, Austin. Watch out! Watch out!
And yes, I cut that so that it filled the entirety of that scene. That's how long it is. After absorbing Malkaya's soul, we gain the ability to phase through grates in the spiritual plane. Which, this is where the game really starts to take shape. We get our first access to our health tortillas, so that we can further increase our health levels, and more areas of the overworld are now accessible. So, after getting lost for a while and picking up some more health tortillas, using our new ability to phase through grates, we make our way to the seat of Kain's empire, the Pillars of Nosgoth. And I'm gonna let this scene play out.
Raziel.
Kain!
The Abyss has been unkind.
I am your creation, Kain. Now, as before, you criticize your own work. What have you done with my clan, degenerate? You have no right. What I have made, I can also destroy, child. Damn you, Kain! You are not God! This act of genocide is unconscionable! The Soul Reaver, Kain's ancient blade, older than any of us and 1,000 times more deadly. The legends claimed that the blade was possessed and thrived by devouring the souls of its victims. For all our bravado, we knew what it meant when Kain drew the Soul Reaver in anger. It meant he was dead.
Now, for Kain's fights, I had to speed it up here because it is a painful back and forth a little bit, but he follows the rule of 3 just as well. He will disappear around the pillars and shoot lightning at you, which will kill you in 1 hit, moving you back to the spiritual plane. So what you have to do is regain your strength, go back to the physical plane, and smack him 3 times. Once you smack him the 3rd time, you win. That's his whole gimmick. And once you finally beat Kain, the really interesting part starts to happen, and the game takes another turn. Mind you, this is really early in the game. We just won, but with Kain defeated, we are brought to our knees. And then the unthinkable happens. Kain shatters the Soul Reaver.
The blade is vanquished. So it unfolds. And we are a step closer to our destinies.
And then Kain pulls that. This is all going according to his
I
plan.
swore I saw a glint of satisfaction in Kain's eye when the Soul Reaver was destroyed. I did not understand the game that Kain was playing. I knew the finishing move.
From this moment and ever afterward, you and this blade are inextricably bound. Soul Reaver and Reaver of Souls, your destinies are intertwined. By destroying the sword, you have liberated it from its corporeal prison and restored it to its true form, a radiant blade, its energy unbound. No longer a physical blade, it can only manifest itself in the material realm when your strength is fully restored. Once manifest, it will sustain you.
And this is where the fun begins.
What are you, little soul? Another of Kain's creatures come to taunt this bound spectre.
I did not intend to disturb your rest.
It is here where we are introduced to Ariel, who talks in cryptic dialogue to give us hints throughout our journey if we come back to the Pillars. But other than that, she holds no bearing over the main story of the game. However, if you played Blood Omen, you will recognize her from having an important role in the first game of the series. And a bit of a fun fact, Ariel was meant for something more in Soul Reaver. But during development, Crystal Dynamics had to cut out quite a bit of content. We'll touch on some of it here and there, but in the original concept of Soul Reaver, Crystal Dynamics had us killing Ariel at some point to get an upgrade to the Soul Reaver. And we can see that later.
Bastard can claim no allegiance from me.
Then we share a common foe, Raziel. Return here when you have need. Ariel remembers what others have forgotten.
And then we forgot about her for the rest of the playthrough. Now, as I said before, with Malkaya's gift, we gain access to much more of the map and can start going after some of the hidden glyphs, like the Force glyph in the Necropolis. And all of these glyphs are hidden all across Nosgoth behind puzzles, and they're all optional.
Once acquired, these glyphs empower you with elemental lore. Each spell exacts a sacrifice of energy, however. Use them sparingly and wisely.
Now, after we get the Force glyph, we make our way to the Silent Cathedral. And after using the Reaver as a Keyblade, we make our way inside, where we undergo some flawless platforming before we find out what happened to the Zephonim, the vampires of our brother Zephin, who have taken on a more insect-like mutation. Moving deeper into the cathedral, we have to do some navigation in the spirit realm. Basically just shift the pipes so that we can get to the upper levels, where the not at all tedious puzzles lie in wait. So we climb up to the upper levels. We throw a switch, which moves us into the next point. We have to flip these switches to move these bellows to open the vents. So, after some phase shifting, we find our next block puzzle. This one being different though. This one being a game of fill in the blanks or match the pictures, with the added bit of respawning enemies because these puzzles didn't take long enough as they were. Seriously. Block puzzles. It only gets worse from here. Zephin's Tower, or the Silent Cathedral, is the point in the game that I like to call block puzzle hell. I removed the majority of them from this cut, and we still have a long runtime. Even sped up, they take a while. But it is a good chance for me to explain one of the concepts of the game. Fighting becomes pointless if you're not at full health. Reason being is because while you have the Soul Reaver, you stop losing health unless you take damage. Then you need to fight. So, with that puzzle done, we flip the switch, and we drop the second bellow, allowing us to open the vents, the first of very many, and proceed to the upper levels of the cathedral. Next up comes one of the most frustrating parts of the tower. So just looking at this, you have some bells that are around, you have pipes, you have a lever. When you throw the lever, a secret door opens. The secret door being the path forward, as we see here. Problem being, the door is on a timer. And you have no way, no matter how hard you try, of getting there before the timer runs out. So you have to find a way to open a path to get there. But Benny, how do we do that, you might ask? And the answer is, you have to smack these bells in order while they're still ringing. What this does is it opens up the pipes, lets the air blow through, or the sound waves. For more lore-accurate reasons, look into the history of the Silent Cathedral. But what this does is it blows out the window by the lever. So, we activate the lever, we open the door, we stop time, because in the spirit realm, time stops, which is a mechanic they don't explain to you, you just have to figure it out. But with the time stop, you can run through and do more block puzzles to get a health tortilla. And do note, I cut out 2 other block puzzles before this, which gave us access to these switches. Well, these switches are needed to open the vents. So, another one-time mechanic is we have to run through this maze, find these vents, and open the correct pattern to get the last 2 switches. The next vent opens, and we rise to the next level. It just keeps going. The pain never ends. So after turning all the vents on at the top of the tower, we realize that we have to put the pipes into place so that all of the steam, the sound, the whatever, can flow through them unobstructed. Raziel essentially turns into a handyman repairing the tower for this entire level. Once we activate these pipes, we fly up to the final level, and we can finally activate Zephin's Warp Gate. That hellscape is done with. We gotta be getting close to the end. I can't handle any more block puzzle. Yeah, I think we're at the end.
The prodigal son. There is no returning for you, Raziel.
Zephan, your visage becomes you. It's an appropriate reflection of your soul.
And you are not his handsome Raziel anymore.
And so, after throwing playground insults at each other for a minute, we face our next Rule of 3 boss. Note that it is a lot simpler if you take care of his limbs first. But essentially, all you gotta do for Zephin is punch him in the stomach, get him to spit out an egg, light the egg on fire at the back of the boss arena, and throw 3 of them into him to burn him to a crisp.
In the mountains beyond the pillars, Nosgoth's cataclysms have exposed an ancient crime. Endowed with Zephon's soul, you may now progress where your path was hitherto impeded.
Thank you, Shere Khan. And with beating Zephin, what ability do we get other than to become none other than Spider-Man? Climbing walls, getting tortillas, and finding another glyph that was hidden behind a very excruciatingly long block puzzle. Yeah, I'm not gonna... don't worry, I cut it out. The stone glyph is also the last glyph we got in the run. So, now that we've toppled Zephin, I can take a moment to better explain the Soul Reaver. The reason I say that combat becomes useless once you get it is because at full health, you have the sword. You can see it's very powerful. But you only have the sword while at full health. So once you have it, you no longer lose health on the physical plane, which negates your need to feed on souls unless you get hit by something. And now get ready for the lore dump.
The ancient tomb of the Seraphim, once impenetrably sealed, now ravaged by Nosgoth's upheavals, its mysteries lay exposed. In the time of Vorador, centuries before Kain was made, the Seraphim warrior priests waged a merciless war against the vampire tribes of Nosgoth. Emboldened by righteousness, they committed unspeakable and indiscriminate acts of violence. These crypts, defiled caskets of Seraphim saints, bearing my brothers' names and my own. The irony of Kain's blasphemous act rushed in on me with the crushing force of revelation. Were my hands not as bloody as these? Worse, I had spilled the blood of my brothers, these very comrades whose tombs lay ravaged before me.
Yes, Raziel, you were a Seraphim, born of the same force that all but destroyed your race. Before the dawn of the Empire, you were chosen. Kain, Nosgoth's solitary self-declared monarch, plundered this tomb and raised you from these crypts. Breathing his vampiric gift into your defiled corpses, he resurrected you as his favored sons.
And with that groundbreaking revelation, we drop down underneath the Seraphim tombs, where we meet a Turalim vampire that is guarding the place for no apparent reason.
Heretic, you shall not pass.
Such loyalty to one who has you guarding this outpost like a chained dog. Do you prosper on the scraps he casts you?
Your insults will do nothing to blunt the agonies of your demise.
Kain killed me once. Behold the result. I have no more to fear from you.
Now, the Turalim are interesting. They are the clan that mutated underneath your brother Terrell. And by killing this guardian, we get access to the force projectile ability. But in the cut content, we were supposed to go to Terrell's clan and encounter him himself.
This relic has infused you with the power to compress and manipulate space. As your symbiotic weapon, the Soul Reaver is also thus enhanced. You may focus and project an orb of kinetic energy to strike objects that are otherwise beyond your reach.
And now, with the Mega Man Blaster equipped, we can now shoot blocks to move them around. Another new block mechanic. And yes, there are many more block puzzles to come. Now, one of the staples of old action puzzle games was water levels. Infamously. And whereas Blood Omen focused more on the RPG and action side of the series, Soul Reaver was much more focused on the adventure and the puzzles. The series would later move to more platforming-based puzzles with blended action mechanics, but for the first title in the Soul Reaver line, they milked block puzzles for all that they could manage, which is a shame because of some of the abilities we'll be getting here soon. But first, we have to take the plunge into water-level hell.
Once a sanctuary against the vampire menace, this abbey has been drowned by the deluge spilling from this wounded land. Your brother Rahab and his brood, devastated even by the feeble rays of Nosgoth's sun, overcame their vulnerability to water and retreated from the surface. Now they haunt these ruins and glide in the darkness of its stagnant depths.
Bro, just inhale. Oh. Raziel, I really need you to, like, focus up here, bud. So as you can see, we have a run-in with the Rahabim, or Rahab's brood of amphibious vampires. Now, another thing, we also have an aversion to water. So, in a water level, anytime we fail a jump, we just end up, shifting back into the spectral plane and have to restart from the beginning. I spent quite a lot of time here. But with that out of the way now, we ring the bell, open the gates, and enter into the most annoying boss arena in the game.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I missed one. I missed one window. Better give me the fucking ability to swim after this.
Infused with Rahab's soul, you have overcome your former vulnerability to water's touch. Immersion in water will no longer dissolve your physical body, enabling you to swim to areas heretofore beyond your reach.
Now, I don't want to say that the swimming ability is useless. Far from it. But in the scope of the main storyline, it only has one use past this point, other than allowing us to grab the Fire Reaver upgrade inside the drowned Abbey. Like where this is going.
This elemental forge is tuned to the Soul Reaver's energy. Once baptized in this primordial flame, the blade may be imbued with fire at any future time.
With the Fire Reaver, we now have the ability to immolate our foes. One hit will incapacitate them, and a second will burn them to a crisp. But again, we don't need to do this unless we take damage. So the whole point of having the Reaver is kind of trivial, since action isn't the focus. And with that, we head north and grab the warp gate outside of the Oracle Caves, which is currently locked and blocking our path to Kain. So after backtracking, we climb to the top of these ramparts and glide our way into Duma's Keep. Now, the keep itself is mostly deserted after the clan fell to the humans that attacked them. The Dumahim, being reduced to the scavengers, are all of the basic vampire enemies that we face in between each of the clan strongholds. The majority of the keep is a collection of block puzzles, which we all know that I love by now, and a few plane-shifting jumping puzzles that allow us to access further into the keep and find the furnace room. So we turn on the gas valve and flip the flame switch to find out what happens. We don't blow ourselves up, but all of the doors that were closed are now blown open. So that's good. Further in, we find a collection of pillars that we have to shift back and forth between the material and spiritual planes to get to the top of. Doing so allows us to get access to a large obelisk-like structure that we then use to blow open the doors to the boss room. And upon entering, we find our executioner staked and bound to his throne in a state of torpor.
Unbound at last. I thank you, brother.
Your thanks are premature, Duma. I have not forgotten whose hands bore me into the abyss.
The centuries in Limbo have honed my strength. Not even Kain is my equal.
Even the strongest vampire is vulnerable.
We shall test your thesis, Raziel.
My bloodthirst has been superseded by an even darker hunger. I will consume your soul before this day is done.
Up until now, the game has set itself up to follow the rule of 3. Rahab, the previous boss, being the only exception. That is, until we face Duma. Duma appears invulnerable to anything we try. Hit him with the Reaver and he shrugs it off. Telekinetic blasts don't do anything to him either. But from prior knowledge, his arena should have something to help us, right? Wrong again. Try as you might, whatever you do, you will not find anything in his throne room that can harm him. And he will follow you to the spiritual plane to continue the punishment. However, if you try to leave the throne room, Duma will follow you. And if you let him follow you to a point, but he does become disinterested if you get too far away from him. And he will go back to his throne room, prompting another cutscene. Very brief, but it's setting up this game of cat and mouse between Duma and Raziel. So how do we beat him? Nothing we do damages him. Hitting him with the stakes doesn't do anything. The answer... you have to lead him all the way through his keep. And if you get too far away from him, he'll just go back to his throne room. So you have to constantly hit him if you get too far away, avoid his attacks, and keep him chasing you all the way back to the furnace room. Once back at the furnace room, from our prior experience, we know that we have to turn the gas on, lead him to the center, and finally pull the flame lever. And with that, we absorb his soul and gain the power of Constrict. Take it away, Shere Khan.
Consuming Duma's soul empowers you to wind a constricting band of spectral energy around your enemies. This energy manifests itself in both the spectral and material realms, and in the physical world, it can be employed to manipulate otherwise immovable objects. In the furthermost canyon of Nosgoth's frozen wastes, the hushed silences embrace an ancient enigma. In the bowels of this labyrinth, your master awaits.
And now we are on the way to Kain. So, circling back to one of my big gripes with the game, and knowing that Soul Reaver hit a point in development hell that made the team at Crystal Dynamics make some rough decisions, puzzle mechanics. Throughout the game, we have seen the block puzzle concept stretched to its absolute limit. But we didn't get swimming puzzles, or very many constrict puzzles until now at the very end. The final level of Soul Reaver throws in a couple of these new types of puzzles, and I know a few of the optional glyph puzzles use them, but the majority of the game has been, as we've already dubbed it, block puzzle hell. And if you're a square peg round hole kind of person, you will not enjoy your time during your playthrough.
It's a color match.
But I mean, look at this. And yes, I did cut out the Oracle Caves, as not much happens there except one use of Constrict to open the Chronoblast, and a new yet still mind-numbing block puzzle. And again, this is my biggest rant from the game. I mean, it's modeled after Legend of Zelda in its exploration and unlocking new paths way of progression. But the Legend of Zelda games had a very solid grip on both the action-adventure genre and the puzzles that it utilized. Soul Reaver definitely has its problems with what it is trying to be at the time, but even for all of the frustrations that come from it, I'm not saying that it's a bad game. In fact, it is still one of my favorite games of all time. For the storytelling, the concepts it explores with its characters, and it being a sequel that is extremely different from its predecessor, following the story not of Kain, but of Kain's creation in a world that he has ruined. The nudge of what happens within the first paradox that Kain created back in Blood Omen. And yes, the possibility that there are more paradoxes yet to come as part of Kain's devious plans. I don't want to spoil the storyline, because I will definitely be playing through the sequels that came after Soul Reaver, and if I can get my hands on it, I might even go back to go over Blood Omen and experience where this sad, unfortunate masterpiece of a series spawned, and gave us a beautiful story full of twists and turns that, surprisingly as a product of its time, still stands up tall today. At its core, Soul Reaver is a platforming puzzle game that offered a mind-blowing narrative filled with phenomenal voice talent, compositions, and a look at Kain's legacy through the eyes of the souls he has wronged. And with all of that out of the way, I believe it's time for our final confrontation with Kain in the heart of the Chronoblast.
It's boxes. I thought it was a goddamn pipe.
Actually, not yet. There were 2 more block puzzles. Now it's time.
At last. I must say I'm disappointed in your progress. I imagined you'd be here sooner. Tell me, did it trouble you to murder your brothers?
Did it trouble you when you ordered me into the abyss?
No. I had faith in you. In your ability to hate. In your self-righteous indignation.
Lies. You cannot have foreseen all of this.
Eternity is relentless, Raziel. When I first stole into this chamber centuries ago, I did not fathom the true power of knowledge. To know the future, Raziel. To see its paths and streams tracing out into the infinite. As a man, I could never have contained such forbidden truths. But each of us is so much more than we once were. Gazing out across the plains of possibility, do you not feel with all your soul how we have become like gods? And as such, are we not indivisible? As long as a single one of us stands, we are legion. And that is why, when I must sacrifice my children to the void, I can do so with a clear heart.
Very poetic, Kain. But in the end, you offer no more than a convenient rationalization for your crimes.
These chambers offer insight for those patient enough to look. In your haste to find me, perhaps you have not gazed deeply enough. Our futures are predestined. Mobius foretold mine a millennium ago. We each play out the paths fate has written for us. We are compelled ineluctably down preordained paths. Free will is an illusion.
I have been to the tomb of Seravan, Kain. Your dirty secret is exposed. How could you transform a Seravan priest into a vampire?
How could I not? One must keep his friends close, Raziel, and his enemies even closer. Can you grasp the absurd beauty of the paradox? We're the same. Seraphim and vampire. With our holy wars, our obsession with Nosgoth's domination, who better to serve me than those whose passion transcends all notions of good and evil?
I will not applaud your clever blasphemy. A Seraphim will save us, defending Nosgoth from the corruption that we represent. My eyes are open, Kain. I find no nobility in the unlife you rudely forced on my unwilling corpse.
You may have uncovered your past, but you know nothing of it. You think the Seraphim were noble, altruistic? Don't be simple. Their agenda was the same as ours.
You are lost in a maze of moral relativism, Kain. These apparitions and portents. What game are you playing now?
Destiny is a game, is it not? And now, you await my latest move.
And here we are after a long-awaited chat with the big man. And I really don't have much to say in regards to the final fight with Kain, as it is the same fight we had at the beginning, but now each time that we hit him, he will activate part of the Chronoblast and rise one level higher, making traversal a bit more tricky. Another thing to note is, since we did get a health power-up during the game, Kain doesn't just one-hit kill us anymore. And if we do get hit, there's a health font right in the center of the arena. Meaning you can stay at full health the entire time, and there's a reason for this. This fight is not designed to kill you. And yes, I do mean that. Kain's objective is not to kill Raziel, as much as Raziel is filled with vengeance. And this fight reflects that. Just listen to this ending cutscene, and I'll see you all in the credits.
You nearly had me, Raziel. But this is not where or how it ends. Fate promises more twists before this drama unfolds completely.
Be warned, Raziel. Once you cross this threshold, you are beyond my influence.
Raziel, Redeemer and Destroyer, Pawn and Messiah, welcome, time-span soul. Welcome to your destiny. Where time is but a loop, a loose stitch in the universal cloth, a streamer might seize upon a chance, a fatal slip, and plunge the fate of planets into chaos.
So, what's next? Kain turned on the machine and leapt through time while we followed, far beyond the reach of Lovecraftian Shere Khan. Soul Reaver received a lot of criticism for its cliffhanger ending, and all of the cut content and mechanics that got beat to death, while others barely got explored. But overall, that content that got cut is largely what made up the following games in the series. And yes, while it is a rough experience by today's standards, Soul Reaver will always hold a special place in my heart for its story and characters over the mechanics and gameplay of the time. If you haven't had the chance or have never heard of the series, I still highly recommend giving this game a chance and exploring all that it has to offer, because I don't think you will regret it. And here, after 3 weeks of working on this, the Soul Reaver Reload is finished. I greatly appreciate all of you gorgeous goblins that have taken the time to check this video out. And while I will be going over the rest of the Legacy of Kain series at some point, the next titles on the list include one Supergiant title, as well as some classics in the survival horror genre that I will be experiencing for the very first time. Thank you, friends. Remember to take care of yourselves, and until next time, Benny out.